And we have an observation deck at Jackrabbit. So I go up there and just look at all 4 directions, northeast, south, and west, and just appreciate.
Hi, and welcome to the Desert Lady Diaries podcast, a weekly conversation with women who found their home in the Mojave Desert. I'm Dawn Davis, and this is episode number 69. If you're a first-time listener, welcome. And if you're a returning listener, thank you so much for coming back. If you'd like more information about the podcast, previous guests, want to catch up on previous episodes, or just want to drop me a line, it's all on the website, desertladydiaries.com. And I invite you to engage with me on Facebook and Instagram at Desert Lady Diaries and on Twitter at Desert Lady Diary. About a year ago at this time, our community was shocked and devastated by the loss of Melanie Buck. Melanie was truly a ray of light and loved life in this desert so much. I don't know about you, but my trips to the library haven't been the same since. Melanie was the second friend I met when I moved to the desert. The place I was house-sitting had no Wi-Fi, so I'd come to the library to download and print scripts, take them back to the house to record and edit, and then come back to the library to upload them to the client. About the third day of this, Melanie said, "Do you live here?" I said, "No, not yet, but I'm working on it." She replied, "It's wonderful. You totally should." I'm so glad we'll always have her voice as a reminder of the great joy she brought to all of us through her earthbound existence. At the end of the episode, I'll read a recent letter from her parents, Gay and David. Hi, and welcome back to Desert Lady Diaries. Today, my guest is Melanie Buck. She is a native of Nebraska and hails from a long line of pioneers and agrarian ancestors. She's a lover of animals, especially her dogs Bart, Arthur, and Cece, who are never far from her side, whether she's working outside or running around the house. In addition to being our local librarian at the Joshua Tree Library, she and her photojournalist husband Buck raise registered Nigerian dwarf goats and heritage chickens as a hobby at their home in Landers, and they will soon be raising a baby boy, congratulations,
Thank you.
Who will make his arrival the first week of November.
Yes.
Welcome to the podcast.
Thank you, Dawn. Thank you.
You're welcome. I'm so glad to have you here. So before we get to the dwarf goats and the chickens and the rag rugs, which are beautiful, and your Instagram account's amazing.
Thank you.
It's Jackrabbit Farms. Is that what it is?
Jackrabbit Goats.
Jackrabbit Goats, if you're on Instagram. And I'll put that in the show notes later. What was your first encounter with desert?
Well, I started coming out here in 1999. I was stationed at the time in San Diego in the United States Navy.
I forgot to mention that in the bio. I specifically put that in there, and I skipped right over it. Yes, an officer in the U.S. Navy. I'm sure that's not something everybody knows coming in the library.
Absolutely. Yes, I was a communications officer. I was previously married, and my then husband and I would come out here. His mother actually owned a house in 29 Palms, and so we would drive out here on the weekends, and we would vacation out here. And honestly, after a couple of times, it just set a seed in my soul. This place is a way of really working itself, into the fiber of your being if you come out here enough. I just absolutely loved it. Then I stopped for a while coming out here after we had moved up to Los Angeles for his work. I really, really missed it. And I had always wanted to come back here. He and I ended up separating and then getting divorced. And then I met my now husband after about 5 years. I had taken up motorcycle riding as something that I wanted to do as an empowering situation for myself. I decided, I created this really long bucket list of things that I wanted to do, and motorcycle riding was at the top of it. So I learned how to do that, and I actually got a motorcycle of my own and met him through a local motorcycle club, the Cretans of Los Angeles.
I had a band director that used to call us Cretans when we were marching out on the field if we were not doing something right. So,
and they're a great group of guys. And they had a clubhouse it was in downtown Los Angeles near Chinatown. And every Thursday night they would throw these parties. I just happened to find them on social media. I would go there, and one night across the room, I saw the most handsome man that I'd ever seen in my whole life. And he was laughing. He threw his head back. He was wearing a two-tone Vanson leather jacket.
Oh, my goodness.
And I thought he was so handsome. And I walked across the room, and I actually told him that. And so we got together, and for that year that I met him, we rode our motorcycles out here to the Joshua Tree Inn. A year after that, we'd been looking for homes in Los Angeles. And it was just an arduous, embarrassing experience. We had a friend who actually had purchased a home in Landers, a cabin. The same time that we went out for my birthday, we rode out and got lunch with him at his cabin. He said, oh, by the way, across the street is this beautiful home, and the fellow who lives there is probably going into assisted living. So if you're interested at all in a house out here, you might want to take a look at that house. Sure enough, a week later on Redfin, it showed up. A week after that, we had put our money down.
Good for you.
It. And that's our Jackrabbit.
Beautiful. Yeah. So was it named Jackrabbit and what is it? Ranchita Libre.
Ranchita Libre, which is Little Jackrabbit Ranch in Spanish. It's named that way because if you register goats, you have to register with a farm name. Oh. And so it has to be a very specific name. And Little Jackrabbit Ranch had already been taken in English. Oh. So we named it Ranchita Libre.
You're crafty.
Yeah. But Jackrabbit actually is on Jackrabbit Road in Landers.
Okay. So, beautiful. Yes. And again, that Instagram account is amazing.
Thank you.
You have some really great eye, great photos.
Thank you.
So that kind of covers how you ended up being here. Talk to me a little bit about the library then, because you've got this background in communications and you come out here, and did you just actively look for a job? Did something open up there?
I actually have been living out here for 2.5 years full time. Okay. And we purchased Jackrabbit. It'll be 5 years in November. I was working at the time in Los Angeles. I had owned a landscape design and specialty maintenance business for about 15 years. And LA had just worn thin on me. It was time to leave, I think. And I had grown up in Nebraska in small towns and was used to a small town atmosphere. So we came out here and started planting trees and started working on our home. And as it happened, this librarian job came up in the newspaper. And I hadn't even thought about being a librarian, but I love to read. And literacy is hugely important to me. I think it's the keystone for intelligence. I love promoting literacy. So I applied and got the job. Awesome. And now I'm in charge of youth services and the assistant librarian there.
Now, talk to me a little bit about that, because I've been in there, and we've discussed before we started recording about how I knew you before I actually moved here, coming into the library and using the services. Right. When I went in, I was very surprised at how many people were at the computers. It's a very active library, but it's also a super small library.
It is.
And then when you get a kids program in there and parents, it's packed with stuff. So how do you manage that? And does the county have any plans to look at a different facility? And I know Penny just retired, so now they're also looking for a full-time librarian. Right. So what's all happening with that?
I'm not sure what's in the cards for that. Our new branch manager, his name is Michael Hakame. He is working really hard. He's also the branch manager over at Yucca Valley.
Oh, so he's doing two. He's a 2-for-1.
That's right.
Oh, gosh.
And so I'm not sure what their plans are. We would love to expand the library.
Yeah.
And we would love to have a new facility. It does get very crowded in there, but it's also a whole lot of fun. Working with the kiddos is something that I just absolutely love. I haven't had a job actually in my whole life that has made me feel so good as a person.
That's beautiful.
And whether it's helping the adults on the computers or whether it's helping the kids, just pick out books. I get so many pictures and cards, and it's just wonderful.
That's nice. And I feel like, too, that, I am a lover of the library. I go to, trips to Seattle or Portland or wherever I go. That's one of my goals, is to get to the library, especially if I go to a city, to see kind of what it looks like. And there are some amazing libraries. But there are a lot of people who take the approach of, I can't even believe there are still libraries around with the internet and everything. But I think the library's role has transitioned from just a place to go and, get books that you can take out for no money, to even providing some social services, especially in LA. I don't know how that is here, but it looks like the folks that are on the computers and things like that, they're taking advantage of the services that are available over and above the books.
They really are. And they, a lot of people are moving here from all sorts of locations throughout, the United States and overseas and whatnot. and they will come to the library because, you know, it's a public service and we do have lots of information to give them. And it's, you know, it's also great that I can relay my story to them and, you know, tell them about all the places that I love to go around here and how easy it was for me to transition from Los Angeles, a very large city, to this small area.
Right.
And it's just been amazing how many people have made the decision to move out here.
It is a bit of a phenomenon.
Yeah, it really is.
And so you've been out here, you said 5 years?
5 years.
And so you're even experiencing and seeing an increase of people coming out. And I think along with that, there's a feeling that there's not a whole lot to do out in the desert.
There's so much to do.
But I think that's a misnomer.
Absolutely, absolutely. I mean, the art scene is huge here. You know, the open mic at the Landers Brew Pub. I mean, the community breakfast at the Copper Mountain Mesa. Yeah, I mean, there are so many.
Our second Saturdays here in downtown.
Exactly,
and things like that,
which is just wonderful. Yeah.
And then you can retreat back to your quiet little hacienda.
Absolutely. Not to mention, and the park has just experienced this huge boom, you know, of publicity, and a lot of people are going there, which is just wonderful because it's an amazing, amazing park.
Right. It's a great natural resource.
Yes,
and
it is.
It's nice to be, you know, host to something so beautiful.
Yes, it is.
So talk to me about miniature dwarf goats and chickens.
Okay. Well, my paternal grandparents had a Charolais farm in Crete, Nebraska, southeast Nebraska. Well, Charolais are a meat cattle.
Okay.
But they didn't raise them for meat. They're a French breed of cattle. My grandfather raised them for breed enhancement or stock improvement. And so they had a small farm, and they had chickens, and they had goats and donkeys and horses.
Oh my goodness.
And so every spare weekend, every summer, I would spend, I loved it. I loved working with them and working on their farm, and they were my favorite people. They were just amazing people for me. So I didn't know that I was going to have a farm living here in California.
In the desert.
In the desert. I never even imagined that. But after we had established Jackrabbit and gotten things going out there and planting the trees and whatnot, one day I thought, well, I can't have cattle, which is what I would have done. And actually, I would have probably moved back to Nebraska and taken over their farm and done what they were doing had I not met Buck, my husband. But as it turns out, one day we were just driving in the truck, and I said, well, how would you feel about getting goats? Because goats are kind of popular. They're kind of the in thing. And he was like, well, I don't know. What do you think? And so I just kind of, on social media, went around and interacted with a few people who had goat farms. And sure enough, there was a woman who lived just in Flamingo Heights, right down the road. Sandy is her name, and she'd been raising Nigerian dwarf goats for 40 years.
Wow.
And so we went over there, and they had a whole group of young goats. And if you've ever been around baby goats, you can't just walk away.
Right.
I mean, if you have it in your mind that you might buy goats, you will buy goats. And so we bought Ingrid and Violet, who are two does that started everything. And then from there, we've grown into a herd of 7. And we've got 2 bucks, Billy White Shoes, and Clark Gable. And then we've got Ingrid Bergman, Violet Blue Eyes, Ethel Merman, Betty Davis, and Dolores Del Rio.
I'm sensing a theme.
yeah. And that was just fun. That was just sort of off the cuff. We named them after old movie stars.
Well, do you know Russ Hilburn?
I do.
Oh,
yes.
Okay, because he has similar, kind of good names for his chickens and his roosters.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
So that's a lot of fun.
And the goats are really affordable. They're very easy to maintain. They don't require a whole lot of space. And they're Nigerian dwarf goats, so they are used to living in a desert environment, so they're well adapted. Yeah. And they have really sweet milk, so you can make yogurt, obviously drink their milk, cheese products, and then we also sell their babies. So they're all registered, and just had 4 kids this last spring. And they're just amazing. They're amazing
I just
creatures.
had this flash of
a 3-year-old boy
Yes!
running around in these Jackrabbit goats and all that stuff.
Well, that's what Buck says. He says, we're going to have him in the horse tank pool, and then we're going to throw him in the goat pen. Right straight away. And I said, well, sure, whatever. But yeah, I think it'll be a great environment to raise a child, you know, and he'll learn so much, you know, and right from the get-go. Right. It'll be really fun for him.
And so are you making cheese and yogurt and all that stuff?
This winter, we're going to start. Yeah. Milking goats is kind of a process. Getting all that started is a bit of a process, but we are definitely going to be doing that this winter.
And how about with the chickens? Do you sell the eggs or do you just use them for your own purposes?
We do sell the eggs.
You do sell the eggs.
Yeah, and currently we've got 35 chickens.
Wow.
I actually started ordering rare and heritage breeds just to kind of keep that stock going. Through the Livestock Conservancy, I found these really interesting breeds of chickens. So I've got 35, and so next spring I'm going to have a lot of eggs. Yes. So anybody who wants to buy eggs, you'll know how to, reach me.
That's awesome. Yes. With all of that, keeping up the goats, keeping up the chickens, working at the library, and yet you still find time to create some beautiful rugs.
I do.
Where did that creative pursuit come from?
Well, I've always liked rag rugs, and I've always really liked Americana as a decor, home decor. And a couple, 3 Christmases ago, my sister had my name for Christmas and asked me what I wanted, and I thought, well, I don't know, maybe I'll get crafty. So I sent her an idea for a rug making kit. And I got it and I was really daunted by it. You know, I just kind of, and they're basic with a crochet hook, a Q hook, and then strips of fabric or repurposed sheets that I get at thrift stores or garage sales and whatnot. I just cut them into strips. And with this kit, I started and I made a rug that's about 18 by 12, and it looks like pieces of fabric just mashed together. And Buck really indulged me. It's now his bath mat at our loft in Los Angeles. And but it feels really good on the feet.
Sure.
And that's the thing about these.
It's absorbing.
It's very absorbent. Right? Yeah. Yes. So it's definitely used, and it's very endearing that he uses that. So I really appreciate that. It has become kind of a passion of mine. And I source fabrics all the time. I'm always looking for really nice patterns. I'm actually getting a lot of custom requests for custom jobs. And I make them in all colors. I like making the round ones, but I also make oval and rectangular ones.
Okay, great.
And, it's funny. I'll be at work or working out at Jackrabbit, and I'll just get this compulsion to go in there. I just want to make them, because it's very... It just is really relaxing.
Well, I would imagine it's kind of a meditative, because that whole crocheting and knitting and that it's very, you can just sit there and you can count or not. And, then you have the option of using different colors and trying to weave in the patterns and all that kind of stuff. So that's
and it's
really cool.
People have really received them well. And so that's also inspiring to me. And I started by just giving them away, and in fact, the one that I brought, you can have if you would like.
God. And it's purple, which is my favorite color. And we'll take a picture of you with the rug so people can see them, and we'll put it up on, if you go on the website, when Melanie's episode drops, go to the blog page on the website, and there's always a picture there of the guest with an object, with not an object, whatever. Sure. So that'll be great. And then if people can, I'll put something in the show notes where people can reach out to order them if they want to order them. You might turn into a crocheted rag rug factory up there besides the goats. Do the goats, is there hair, or will you make soap maybe out of the milk, or what's your plan with that?
I don't have plans to do that. I actually have a lot of friends, not a lot, but I have a handful of friends who actually make soap out of the goat milk, and I really like their products, and so I will continue to support them.
Awesome.
Because they do such a good job with it. I'll just focus on cheese and yogurt. Yes.
Yeah, I'm excited about the cheese. Yogurt I just can't do, but the cheese I'm very excited about. So when you moved here initially, what was your process, and kind of, did you know anybody? Were you totally new? How did you work your way into the community? What kind of things did you do?
Well, we knew Beal, who lives owns the cabin
across the street. Okay.
And he has since then bought 2 other cabins in the Landers area. He works in real estate, and so we knew him. And then the woman Angelina Schoenberger and her husband John lived next door to us, and she actually sold us the home. And so we got to know them. Meeting people, out in Landers especially, it's you can be very isolated out there, right. Because people live on these 5-acre parcels and everybody's very spread out. For a while I didn't know anybody up here, but there were people that I really knew I wanted to meet. And then through the library, meeting people, I've just met so many fantastic people through that.
Right.
And I'm a big believer of putting things in your mind's eye and promoting goodness and gratitude and things like that. And so I just basically put it in my mind's eye that I was going to enter the art circuit, meet people any way I could, reach out to people just,
right.
Randomly and say, hey, I've seen you on Instagram or I've seen you in the newspaper and I'd really like to connect. And so that sort of,
That's great.
Yeah, I met people that way.
Well, in book club, I think we had conversation about Kip's book club too.
Kip's book club, absolutely.
Exactly.
Yeah.
That's a great way to meet people too.
It is.
And kind of be rallying around a common thing, and it fits right in with your love of books and literacy.
Yes.
So
yes.
Yeah.
And everybody I've met out here, honestly, it's been magical. I mean, everybody, I call them magic desert people because all the people that I've met out here have just been really fantastic for the most part. And I think it's because we all have a similar idea about coming out here and making this a good community, and everybody is positive, everybody's excited about being here.
Right. Yeah. Well, I don't,
because everybody wants to be here.
Right. It's a choice that people made to come for whatever reasons.
Right.
And I'm just finding, even just doing this, I'm finding out amazing things that, I say, oh, I know her, but I don't really know. And now I do. Like, I had no idea about your Navy career or any of that. That's super cool. Or that you rode a motorcycle. I'm actually kind of jealous about that. It's something I've toyed with
we'll
a
have
lot.
to talk about that.
So,
it's very empowering. It's a very fun
Seems
thing
like it would be. When you moved out, because it is a desert environment, were there things that you found challenging or surprising, or that are challenging now with, like, say, animals that you have, and knowing the predators that are here in the desert? How, was there anything that was like, oh my gosh, I'm not sure I can do this, or any of that?
Not necessarily. What actually has struck me is how beautiful it is. And every day it's beautiful.
Differently
beautiful. I mean, there's a sky show every day. I mean, whether it's the sunrise or sunset and everything in between.
Right.
It's just absolutely phenomenally beautiful out here. And a lot of people don't think of the desert as being an alive, vibrant place.
Right.
And it's stunning to me. And I am moved to tears so often when I'm driving to work or at my farm, just taking it all in and just being amazed.
And I find, too, not only the visual beauty, but the silence.
Absolutely.
That moves me.
Yes.
In many ways.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, but we do have our fair share of predators.
Yes.
We do. We have.
I saw Buck. You had something on Instagram with him wrangling one of those. Was it a Mojave Green?
Mojave Green rattlesnake.
Right. Okay.
Yes.
Yeah.
And we have actually had 4 in 2 months on our property, and they're the most venomous snakes. I won't say they're the most aggressive because we honestly haven't seen them be aggressive, but they are definitely something that you have to be very aware of. We've got scorpions, of course, which are not, they're not really harmful, but they're imposing, a bit.
I've had a few in here, and I've had a snake in here, which is why, I've got my snake guard, my towel rolled up underneath the screen door, so I learned my lesson last year.
Right.
I like to think of it as he was welcoming me.
Yes.
It was only about a month and a half after I'd moved in, and that was a challenge for me. At first I was like, who am I going to call to help me? And I'm like, listen, you moved out here.
Right.
You got to learn to deal with this stuff. Put the phone down and deal with it.
And it's not really as bad as you actually think it's going to be.
No, it wasn't in there. I think they're, of course, more fearful. Like, all of a sudden they realize, this isn't my natural environment. How did I get in here? What am I doing in here? And they, bye, get out the door.
Absolutely. But we do have 6 coyotes around our property, and they're ever present. There has been a bobcat that's been sighted.
Oh, nice.
And a couple years ago, we had mountain lion tracks out at Jackrabbit. The animals that are the worst out there, I guess I'll say, or the most troublesome, are the packs of wild dogs, because there's a real problem, especially up in landers, of people dumping their dogs, and then they form these wild, large packs, and they become very feral. We haven't seen any for a while now, but having the chickens and having the goats, you don't want that.
So is your parcel, is it completely fenced in?
No.
Or you're not? Oh,
no,
okay.
we're not. But Buck made sure that he built the Fort Knox of both chicken enclosures, geese enclosures, because we do have geese as well, and goat enclosures. So we're definitely,
so even though they can move, the predators, quote unquote, can move freely in their natural environment, but your little animals are protected.
Exactly. Exactly. Okay. And we've had losses. We've lost chickens, and we lost our female goose not terribly long ago. A coyote got her. But, that's part of the deal.
Right.
And you just have to be cognizant and aware.
Right.
And they were here a long time before we were.
Exactly. So and it's just how nature works.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah, and, on a farm, all sorts of things happen.
Right.
Good and the bad. So you take it for what it's
great.
Good. Yeah.
So are there any ways that you feel that you've changed or grown since you moved here?
I'm happy. I am happy for the first time since I was a young child. And I always wanted a life like this. And I feel like everything that I have wanted being out here, I have received. Everything that I've put out, my husband is just incredible. He's very smart and wonderful, and I met him, and we ended up at this beautiful place, and our home is, I love our home. I want to be nowhere but there for the most part. I have my animals that I always wanted, and all these extraordinary people that I've met. And, like I said, I'm brought to tears by how wonderful it is. I felt like when I was living in Los Angeles, I was fighting, every day. It is a
struggle, and at some point, I think you just recognize, you say, how much longer am I going to do this?
Right.
How much longer am I going to put myself through this?
Right.
Because I had a epiphany. We talked about it before we started recording, but it was hard down there.
Yeah.
It's not for the faint of heart.
Exactly. And I really, I enjoyed my business. I really, and I accomplished a lot and did what I wanted to do through that. I always wanted to own my own business. I learned a whole lot from it, but I just never felt satisfied, and I never felt like I was appreciated in that job. Yeah. And like I said, with the children who come in and at the library and everything, I feel appreciated. I feel happy as a person.
That's awesome.
Like I'm contributing.
Right, exactly. And that's an important feeling to have.
Exactly. Yeah.
So for people who would consider moving out to the desert, what are some things that you would say to them?
I would say that you can make anything happen, first of all. Whatever you really want to do. It might take some time, but you definitely can. I would say make sure that you find a place that really resonates with you. If you want to make it your permanent home, realize that maybe it's not for you. After a while.
Right.
Because, some people come out here, with the idea that it's just going to be great. And or
they want to incorporate things that they are accustomed to having in a bigger place.
That's right. And it is.
And changing it a little bit.
Exactly. And, there's not much nightlife, I would say. There are like opening parties, receptions, and things like that with the art group, but it's not... you're not going to find a nightclub or anything like that. No. But it's definitely worth it. If you intend to move out here and you're looking for,
happiness
and growing. Yeah, absolutely. Right. It's great. I call sort of twilight, or when the sun is setting, the best part of the day. And we have an observation deck at Jackrabbit. So I go up there and just look at all 4 directions, northeast, south, and west, and just appreciate. And that's a great way to really wind down. So,
awesome.
Yes.
Well, I really appreciate you coming.
Thank you.
And being on the podcast. And are you named your child?
We have. My grandfather was my hero, my paternal grandfather, and his name was Claude. So we've named our little boy Joe Claude Buck.
Beautiful.
He's our little kit fox.
Yeah.
This is his nickname. So already,
right.
Yes.
Well, that's very exciting. Congratulations. And I'm so pleased to know you.
Thank you. It's really nice to know you, Dawn.
Yeah, thanks for coming on.
It's awesome.
Here's the letter from Gay and David Whitman, Melanie's parents. Hello, Dawn. I got your message about you sharing Mel's interview again. Thank you so much. It's always a joy to hear her voice once more. We miss her deeply and still find it unbelievable that she is gone from us. You asked us if we wanted to write something. There are some things we would appreciate you sharing with your audience. First, since we didn't have everyone's address or even last names of some, we would like you to extend our thanks to all the people who helped in any way after Mel died. We so appreciated the outpouring of affection from the community that she loved so much. We'd also like to thank the person who made the trouble call to the sheriff to alert him to this tragedy. I believe his name is Michael Van Haney from Yucca Valley, but I'm not certain of this. Second, although it's been a year, there hasn't been a day that goes by we don't think of and grieve for our darling daughter and sister. We miss her so much. Our family isn't the same and will never be the same without her. She dearly loved her 2 guys, Paul and little Joe, and her Jackrabbit homestead. She loved her life and the friends, family, and all the animals she had. She loved her job at the library and everyone who came, especially all the children. Her cause was literacy. Her hope was for everyone to read and to read to their children daily. Our deepest regret is she will never be able to raise her son, Joe Claude, and he will never know the brilliant light that was his mother. Finally, she always told me that she loved the song Somewhere Over the Rainbow. So, for all of your audience, please think and remember our precious daughter whenever that song is played. Her parents, David and Gay Whitman. Gay and David, thank you so much for sharing your thoughts. Melanie's light touched so many of us, and we are all grateful and better for having known her. What a gift. The podcast will be back in the new year. Until then, the Throwback Thursday episodes will continue, and of course, all the episodes are out there for you to enjoy anytime you want to listen. I'm so appreciative of all of you and your support of this podcast. I'm grateful to all the women who have shared their stories, to all of you who listen, those who have signed up for the weekly newsletter, and especially those of you who have provided financial support to help cover the necessary expenses that keep the podcast going. And however you celebrate the holidays, I hope they're full of love. See you next year.